Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar titled It's Time to Reboot Your ECM Platform with Content Services, presented by Newgen, a leading provider of digital process automation, content services, and customer communication platform, featuring Forrester Research as a guest speaker. I am Darshak Parmar and shall be your host and the moderator for this webinar today. Today, we will have Cheryl McKinnon, Vice President and Principal Analyst from Forrester Research, and Tim Kreiner, Vice President and Subject Matter Expert from Newgen Software, as our speakers. At the end of the presentation, we'll be having a question and answer session. We request you to type your questions in the questions window of your GoToWebinar anytime. I'll take them up at the end of the session with our experts. With that, I'm going to hand over to Cheryl.
Great, thank you very much. Very pleased to be a participant in this webinar today. And I'll just make sure my slides, can you just confirm you can see my slides now?
Yeah, I can see your slides.
Wonderful, thank you. So what we're going to talk about over the next approximately 30 minutes or so are just some of the key trends that we're tracking in the broader shifting enterprise content management market. We know that there's a big appetite out there for modernization, for content and process services. There's a lot moving in this technology market, and a lot of the use cases are beginning to change. So just to start from kind of a big picture perspective, Forrester Research has been talking about this concept of the age of the customer for the last several years. I think this is really important as we think about our content and process roadmaps, because increasingly businesses are under pressure to improve their customer experience, help to drive revenue. They're increasingly looking to differentiate themselves with digital, become competitors, become leaders in their own markets. They're looking to use customer insights to gain their own competitive advantage. And of course, when we hear the term insight, we should think about data. Of course, we need data to be able to analyze it, use it, find those patterns so we can make better decisions. We want to be able to accelerate our own market growth with marketing innovation. And I think most relevant for some of this audience, we want to transform our own IT services, our strategy, our technology investments to better serve, win, and retain those customers. And of course, especially for those in regulated businesses, we need to secure our customers' data, protect the brand, both your own as well as the customers that you're serving. So these high-level market imperatives are top of mind with many of the technology and business decision makers that we talk to every year. And this really serves as a helpful lens as we think about how the content management market has evolved. So with some of these new imperatives facing organizations today, we're starting to see that these shifts to digital business, this differentiation with digital, means that we're finding new use cases for content, process, and collaboration. Increasingly, organizations want to be able to embrace their own extended enterprise. And what I mean by that is recognizing that the people that we do business with, the people that we collaborate with, the transactions that we conduct, it's not just with employees within our own four walls, but this extended enterprise includes our clients, our suppliers, our business partners, regulators, perhaps. So we need to look at where we can extend our own digital footprint and bring them into the content processes that are key to our business. Improvement of customer experience is increasingly an area where companies are continuing to invest, and a high priority in terms of getting better outcomes from content management investments. We're absolutely seeing the rise of interest in these intelligent, transparent content services, bringing more automation opportunities and more use of technology to do the heavy lifting, eliminate a lot of the manual processes that still plague many businesses. And of course, we need to take a look at all of this innovation, embrace these new use cases, but without neglecting the importance of meeting our compliance obligation, laws, regulations, including those governance requirements and security needs, again, protecting that corporate information and our customer data as well. When we think about this whole shift to digital business, we really also need to think about the culture and the ecosystem around it. One of my colleagues published a report that looked at these four particular rules of digital business and what it means. So as we think about our content management modernization efforts and rebooting some of our requirements, We need to think about, this whole area of digital experience. So how do we make sure that we're putting ourselves in the seat of the employees or the customers that we're serving, thinking about empathy and how do they actually want to work? How do they want to engage with this content? We want to look at the digital operations that run our businesses, focusing on those areas that customers value most, and not just what key stakeholders internally find important, but where do they also intersect with what your customers find important. We want to invest in our digital ecosystems. And again, this has a lot to do with collaboration, using content to share ideas, to co-create work, using process to make sure we understand where a task sits. And again, embracing that extended enterprise, this includes your external stakeholders. And the fourth area around digital information, where can we look at being more nimble, more agile, moving more quickly? And I think this is a big impetus behind some of the needs for fresh approaches to content management, newer architectures, more nimble technologies that allow us to execute on more agile and nimble requirements. We're also seeing across the market a number of business models themselves are beginning to change. We're seeing a move away from a lot of traditional static or linear approaches to delivering goods and services and moving into a more nimble approach. So that traditional, inputs coming in, outputs going out, some processing in the middle, some of those models are beginning to shift. Business models themselves are becoming agile. We see increasingly in construction, engineering, research, we might bring together a team of engineers or researchers for a particular project for 2 or 3 years, and then disband that team once the project or the service has been delivered. What does that mean in terms of supporting them with the collaborative content and process services and staying nimble as these projects come together and then disband? And we're also seeing this whole rise of automation. This is going to be a really key theme for rebooting or modernizing your content management strategy over the next year or so. Where are we going to find this whole shift from simply human-driven to machine-driven? This is going to provide opportunities for organizations to grow and scale at a much faster rate without having to make the parallel investments. It also means this convergence of physical and digital. So we're going to see more robotic automation happening in the workplace, helping us relieve ourselves from some of these manual repetitive tasks, using technology to help us focus on higher value work. And we're going to see some shift in controls from people managing processes and having the algorithms start to optimize and find the best path for a particular process or better recommendations in terms of what content I should read next. So we're going to see a lot of really interesting innovation and change happening in this market for the next couple of years. So with some of these broader macro trends, what does this mean for the world of content management and process automation? The first area I think is really interesting. Some of my colleagues developed this framework earlier in this calendar year, and this Forrester automation framework is a really helpful guide in terms of trying to decide where to pick your battles, where to start with some of the automation opportunities that technology is bringing into the mix. You'll see that there's 8 different categories here around development, including software development, code optimization. So where can algorithms actually still start to help analyze and improve our code that we're writing? The engagement area in terms of helping customers get the information they need with robots and chat and so on. Sales automation, we've seen a lot of investment here in terms of managing the content there, being able to deliver sales and marketing platforms to automate various campaigns. Decisions in terms of looking at machine learning and predicting, where particular failures might happen or where certain patterns are repeating themselves, simulating this concept of the digital twin, being able to simulate what's happening in our physical world. Probably most relevant for a number of us here on this call today is the investment in process automation, looking at mining processes to reveal patterns, looking at more complex events, introducing things like robotic process automation to extend your current workflow or content optimization, and looking at platforms with low-code development and design tools to help you get those content-rich applications into the hands of your users much more quickly. And then we have infrastructure and industrial areas of automation beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about here today, but this moves into the era of IoT and using sensor data from the physical world to look at optimization and watch for patterns. So there's a few things that we need to watch for. There's a lot of technology innovation happening here, and it might feel overwhelming. So how do we pick our battles? How do we focus on where we want to modernize, especially in the world of content and process? Where's there's opportunities to innovate? Where can we look at launching new products or services, adjusting our business models, or even introducing new lines of businesses? What are some of the things that can be automated? The interactions with our internal colleagues or external customers, decisions that we make, the actions we take. Where these intersect, where they overlap, this is the opportunity to start delivering software, using technology to help with some of these automation opportunities. But we know that digital transformation is not a one-time project. It's an ongoing investment and transformation. There's always room for improvement and learning from previous iterations. So to continue this path of digital transformation, however your own firm might choose to define it, it's more than just a group of single developers can deliver. We actually do need to look at fresh platforms, low code and no code environments, so we can start bringing in a larger group of application designers and deliverers to help the automation. Very interesting. We surveyed a number of our readers in 2018 to really understand, what's driving investment in process automation. And if you wind back the clock a couple of years, we saw that cost reduction was a major area of investment. So we're looking at removing manual activities, eliminating paper. Well, today, 2 years later, the main driver for process automation is actually about customer experience improvement. You'll see this theme repeatedly. It's where a lot of organizations are investing time and energy and, of course, money in terms of automation. But customer experience is driving a lot of the process improvement investments today. But if you look forward into a couple of years, we see that the acceleration of this digital business transformation is where companies will continue this process investment 2 years into the future. So it's almost like a maturity curve. We've gone from cost savings and process improvement from a resource takeout perspective to customer improvement and ongoing digital transformation into the future. So if we think about the world of content and process management, we do know that some of the traditional approaches have not always been successful. We see many large organizations that have attempted to select, one platform to rule them all, run all of the enterprise content, but that often doesn't scale. There's a lot of different applications, a lot of different use cases. So the recognition now is that we need more flexible, nimble platforms and not trying to have generic enterprise content management suites of the past. Multiple systems from multiple vendors is actually very typical, especially in industries where companies grow through merger and acquisition. There's always incoming new applications and repositories. The rise of cloud is certainly introducing some complexity here. So now we're seeing content being stored in cloud repositories, whether it's known to the business or not. And we're also seeing organizations trying to really tackle some of the complexity inside of their businesses, looking to break down, very large departmental, cross-departmental processes, dissolving them into more granular automations, much more focused tasks. So I think it is time to reboot our focus on content management and look at where the future is taking us. I do believe that the generational war in terms of architecture has been won. We've made this transition from the world of 1990s architecture, ECM suites, very heavy footprint, very monolithic, to the much more nimble, flexible content platforms that we see today. They might be cloud native, they might be cloud friendly. Many organizations I talk to are very much in the middle in terms of hybrid and hosted approaches, but the path to cloud certainly is clear. And if we look forward into the next couple of years, we do see that we're going to see more and more of these intelligent content services, bringing the world of advanced analytics, machine learning, natural language processing, and AI much more to the forefront of our content management investments. So we do see that these modern content platforms have emerged. And when we talk about a content platform, it means we're looking for something that's more nimble and flexible. We're decoupling the architecture. So if I want to update the user interface layer, provide a more compelling user experience, it means I don't have to change anything in the backend database or the logic layer. There's a much more flexibility of just doing the work that needs to be done. A couple of my colleagues wrote a report not long ago about this platform explosion and defined a software platform as a set of integrated components and modular services assembled to help other parties as they design, build, and run business logic, meaning applications. So think about these modular services as we think about the future of content management. So when we think about these modern content services driven platforms, I mean, they are architected to help organizations deliver just that right set of applications. Nothing too complex, but not too simplistic as well. Just the capabilities their users need to do their job. It means we're looking at platforms that are much more services and API driven, that are easy to integrate across other critical line of business applications and cross-system interoperability, because we do know there's other systems in the mix. And we're also seeing a lot of flexible pricing and licensing models. So organizations are recognizing that as use cases change, pricing and licensing models might be flexible as well. Maybe it's better to price on storage instead of users because the use cases are changing. And of course, we are seeing the more modern content management platforms beginning to offer and deliver these flexible low-code or no-code application design and development tools, so that I don't need to learn proprietary systems. I've got templates, frameworks, toolkits to be able to deliver those content applications to meet my users' needs. So I'm not going to read through the whole definition here, but we do see that this whole shift to content services is really this next logical evolution of the market we've historically known, and many people still use the term ECM. But I think this move to more of the services-driven platform is really important, because it's not just upgraded software, it really is a rethinking of how we deliver and deploy content and process applications to our business users. At Forrester, we've been looking at kind of several different categories of these content services. Those that are kind of the foundational, so library services, repository, search, metadata. But then we know that organizations want to deliver applications that are very specific. They might be more collaborative in nature. So I want teamwork spaces. I want secure sharing, internal or external. Or we might know that organizations have a lot of heavy structured process-based applications they want to deliver. So we need reporting, workflow, forms, and so on. And all of these are wrapped together with these increasingly intelligent services with APIs, federation, interoperability, and of course, machine learning and artificial intelligence. So this is really what we're seeing the move in the market to. So as you think about rebooting your own roadmap, your own strategy for content management, think about these content services. What mix of capabilities do you need to deliver those applications, those use cases that are going to serve your business requirements, that very top area there. And if you're in banking, you might be focusing on loan origination, mortgages. If you're working in a kind of a horizontal industry, employee file management might be a key one. You've got common services, common security models, repository services, and you can deliver just what you need. So we are seeing that organizations are looking to take back control of their content. We see the rise of software as a service across many different categories, whether it's customer relationship management, HR management, and we're seeing that documents are ending up in multiple places. So part of this modernization effort is often, well, how do we take back? We want to integrate to these key, new, innovative enterprise applications, but we need to take control back of our documents. And the ability to deliver these content services through leading applications like your CRM or HR management system, very critical. So overall, the outlook for the content market is very healthy. Digitization of business process continues to be the top driver for investment. We see that organizations are still struggling to some extent with the management of their network drives and file shares, and bringing governance to the mix is another top challenge. So there's always work to be done. But it's very interesting that over half of the programs that we surveyed, and we do this survey every year of our content management related inquiry calls, as well as people who read our research, they want to create a new business case for content management. So even if they're not looking at changing vendors, they're looking for new outcomes. There's new goals and objectives that they want to be able to deliver. And some of those top new goals they're looking to accomplish over the next year are better knowledge sharing across their organization, improving their customer experience, because content is very key to the customer experience, and of course, improving their compliance. But it's a very healthy market. Over 90% of the program leaders that we surveyed intend to keep enhancing and expanding their rollouts. So what are the key trends that are driving this shift to content services? The first one, I think, is we've been watching for a couple of years now, and this is this whole move to cloud services. Cloud adoption is accelerating at a rapid pace, but it's happening in a very kind of mixed fashion. It's not just ripping and replacing old systems. There's a lot of embracing and extending that's happening. We did a survey. We do a number of very large scale surveys at Forrester every year, and this one looks at over 3,000 software decision makers. And we found that file sharing and storage is actually a top reason why people are using public cloud services. So file sharing and storage come up as two of the top uses for cloud today. But what's really interesting, when we look at content management specifically, we find that as organizations move away from on-premises systems, they're not just moving immediately to a 100% born cloud offering. It's a much more mixed approach. We see that 22% of organizations are actually describing themselves as hybrid. So there's a mix of perhaps on-premises applications, cloud applications. It might be from different vendors or different offerings from the same vendor, but it's a mixed mode. We also see that 21% describe themselves as a hosted delivery model, meaning that they're working with their vendor or one of their vendor service providers to essentially give up the burden of their own in-house infrastructure data center, letting the vendor host that application back to them. So that continues to be a very popular model. And then, of course, we do see that organizations are adopting multi-tenant, multi-instance software as a service. So it's very much, as we move to cloud, very much a mixed and phased approach to adoption. I think the top trend, the number one kind of big disruptor in this market as we reboot our content management strategies, is going to be where we can get most benefit from automation, analytics, and these intelligent services. This is really going to shape our roadmap over the next couple of years. The new opportunities I think that we bring to the table are incorporating some of these machine learning algorithms, more intelligent recognition capabilities, data extraction and automation services. And we see a number of the key vendors investing quite deeply in this area right now. One of my colleagues wrote a report not too long ago about the future of white-collar work, sharing your cubicle with robots. And I really like the term that was used in that report, the cognitive tipping point. And it means that it's this inflection point at which cognitive technology transforms a given segment of work by interacting with humans naturally and turning data into insights and action. And I really think we're on the brink of seeing this cognitive tipping point reach our content management roadmaps. When we think about the rise of these intelligent content services, there's some new opportunities. So rethinking our strategy also means looking at new opportunities to bring value to our businesses. One of the areas of opportunity I think we have is how do we reduce what I like to call information FOMO, the fear of missing out. We know that a lot of organizations have multiple content systems, managed and unmanaged, and it's often very difficult for someone to remember, where did I read that PowerPoint deck last year? I know I read something that was useful to me, but I can't remember where I found it. I can't remember who sent it to me. So this is where some of the automation, categorization, better recommendations can help with some of these struggles today. We also have opportunities to start applying more consistent policies and governance across our content application, being able to use intelligent services to recognize what content type it is and to apply perhaps security or retention policies. We're also seeing a whole resurgence in interest in capture and optical character recognition, OCR, as more organizations look at adopting or trialing RPA, robotic process automation. There's a recognition as we actually need data. So we need to convert some of that non-readable text that we see locked up in many of our documents, whether it's TIFF, JPEG, PDF. We need to extract that data. So there's a really interesting resurgence in OCR and data extraction happening right now to take advantage of automation opportunities. And we're also seeing that cloud providers are doing a lot in terms of training the systems, using these large repositories of data to really understand how they can continually improve their text extraction, image recognition, and so on. It's very interesting in some of the surveys that we've done. Within a year, we've seen the interest in automation and advanced analytics in the content management space move from interest to actual action. In the survey that we've run over the last several years, back in 2017, 44% of the people we surveyed said that they had interest in bringing some of these automation and intelligent services into their content management roadmap, but they had no firm plans to do anything. Well, move forward 1 year and we see that 50% actually have plans to do something in the next 1 to 2 years. In terms of some of these new areas of investments helping to extend and enhance our content management strategy, the two that are finding their early adopters are RPA, robotic process automation, and AI. And those are AI services both from your content management providers as well as some of the public cloud services that are offering them as well. RPA is a really interesting kind of extension of the broader content and process automation market. And we see that there's really two flavors of RPA in the market today. Our attended RPA, which is basically those automation, those bots essentially that are helping to work with humans to initiate and control these tasks. So that might be moving data from app to app. These are often things that are associated with front office or customer facing roles. And then there's more of the unattended RPA. So this is where automation actually replaces a low value manual human task. So this can be running 24/7 and again doing things like conversion or moving data from application to application. The next key trend I want to highlight is that the digital business that we're talking about, these transformations, means embracing your extended enterprise. And one of the key things is that we see about 2/3 of the organizations we talk to actually want external participants to be active parts of their content management applications. And often that means a purpose-built system that might be serving that external use case, but this is something that is really key. In terms of what organizations want to be able to do here, they're actually looking at collaborating with their contractors, agencies, consultants, or perhaps securely sharing correspondence in digital formats, so moving away from things like email or clunky web portal upload-download sites. We see this especially in banking and insurance, where there's a lot of interest in secure digital workspaces, inboxes, upload sites, again, where automation can take that document, extract the meaningful data, and perhaps kick off a workflow because of the data that it finds. When we think about this extended enterprise, we also need to think about the governance and security requirements we're seeing across the globe with the rise of data protection and privacy laws such as GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, and other states following suit. And it means that this extended enterprise is getting more power into their hands. So the data that we entrust, that we share with our providers needs to be protected, secured, and managed accordingly. And finally, we see that automation and this move to more componentized content is starting to disrupt some of our traditional content management practices. So we are also starting to think about how we create our content. A lot of traditional ECM has been good at managing files, but not necessarily more granular components of content, and also expect to see more robots themselves start to create content for us. So think about that whole content creation part of the life cycle and prepare for change there as well. We do see that this move to more intelligent automation is a progression. We're all starting from a fairly simple starting point in terms of how can we use automation and digitization to get the data out of often dumb document types such as PDFs or TIFFs. We can then move into using more rules to extract value. And of course, ongoing adoption of AI and machine learning just helps expand our knowledge set. So the good news here, we are seeing that this is the pace of digitization is increasing. In just a couple of years, we've seen the number of companies that describe themselves as being reliant on paper go from 29% to 14%. So again, we're seeing progress happening here. So just to wrap things up in terms of what this means, when you're trying to assess your organization's own digital maturity, where do you sit on your own path to digital transformation? Identifying where you start and where you want to end up is really key. Many of the customers I talk to today sit kind of in between the beginner and intermediate stage. The beginner stage being more of a bolt-on. So I want to be able to pick some very specific areas, employ technology to automate some tasks, eliminate paper perhaps. But then we start moving into more sophisticated approaches. I want to put customers at the center of how I re-architect my business. And those more advanced companies, these are often born digital companies. These are the startups that might be threatening the large financial firms, fintech, insurance tech. So these are organizations that don't have a lot of legacy to be cleaned up. We do know that this is an ongoing area of continuous improvement. When we think about transformation and move to digital business, it's not a one-time project, it's an ongoing area. We have to continue to watch what we deliver, look at how these services are impacting our customers and employees, and continually refine and improve. One of the areas I often get asked about is, well, how do you really measure success? How do you know you're moving in the right direction? And in one of our reports, we actually do outline 6 of the key success measurements. Some of them might be more relevant to you than others, but how do you measure things like user productivity, even impact on revenue, customer satisfaction, use of capital, asset protection, and then of course, compliance. So with that, I'll turn it back to our hosts, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Cheryl. Tim, your slides are up.
They're not up yet, but they're coming. While waiting for Darshak to get my slides up, Cheryl, thank you very much for a great and comprehensive presentation and insight into the world of content management. I particularly enjoyed your discussion of the content platform because this is something that Newgen has been offering for a number of years. And for the audience at large, at Newgen, we've seen many of the same trends that Cheryl discussed in almost all the companies that we've worked with. Some of these organizations are at the front of the curve, some are in the middle, some are at the tail end, and they prefer to adopt a little bit later rather than sooner. But what's common amongst all of these companies is that content is as important today as it ever was. There are lots of articles all over the internet about content being dead. Absolutely not. It is growing and very, very robust. Now, as Cheryl indicated, the content management, as you know it, that's evolved. That's evolved from being a static document repository to now being a change engine for digital transformation and a key ingredient for customer experience improvement. Cheryl covered the main drivers we see in the market today every time we're out talking with customers, but 3 in particular caught my attention. And the first was the dream of one repository to rule them all has not materialized. The promise of true ECM hasn't quite happened. Number 2, multiple systems from multiple vendors from one company or within one company is common. We see it all the time. And last, the cloud has finally gained acceptance and more companies have a cloud-first strategy. And to add to that, many organizations are looking to not only modernize their content management systems, they want to be able to contextualize and use the documents and data in ways that impact their customers, internal and external, positively while transforming how they do their business. Just imagine using content to improve customer experience. Not a novel idea, but content is just one piece of the puzzle. In a recent study in one industry, a pool of several thousand people were asked, How good is the customer experience you're giving to your customers? About 77% responded saying that they gave good to great service. But curiously, when the customers of these companies were interviewed, only 7% thought they were getting good to great experience or service. That's a remarkable difference. It'd be interesting to see what kind of information the customer-facing employees had to use to provide service to those customers. So here's a question for you. How good is the experience you're giving to your customers? So I'd like to do a real quick poll of the audience. And how many of you out in the audience think that content management platform can impact your customer experience? Let's take 30 seconds and please go to your screen and vote yes or no. And I'll ask Darshak in just about 15 more seconds to see if he can give us a result up here. Okay, Darshak, do we have a percentage to put there? 95% of the audience believes that content management really can impact your customer experience. That's great. You all are thinking in line with where the industry is heading, and you've just confirmed what Cheryl said earlier. You'll also appreciate that process and content go hand in hand together, and they deliver relevant and contextual service to customers, which forms that experience. Why would you consider replacing, or as Cheryl put it, ripping and replacing a functioning content management system? In addition to some of the points that she made, here are 4 additional things to think about. First, many legacy content management systems lag technological advancements. Right now, today, we're interacting with 2 organizations who are replacing systems that were originally installed 15 years ago and simply can't keep up with today's technology. Second, just giving your employees content access in multi-siloed environments doesn't make them productive. Third, high productivity doesn't result in greater customer experience. Doing something faster doesn't mean it's being done better or providing a better experience. It could mean that you just give poor service faster. Last, content constantly changes, and it is imperative to be able to handle the new content in order to deliver delightful customer experience. So here's a question for you. Does your ECM help, hinder, or do nothing for your customer experience? Think about that. Now, we at Newgen provide a holistic approach. This is what we're showing on the screen right now, a holistic approach to linking the content, process, and communication throughout your organization. And the centerpiece of our approach is a unified automation platform, exactly what Cheryl was talking about, consisting of a robust, scalable, and secure ECM that's linked to a highly configurable BPM that can fully automate processes and push and pull information between and among different systems, just as people have to do with static systems. And it can do this with low code, and it can do this automatically. The third component of this platform is a powerful communications management tool that controls generation and distribution of all customer communication, leveraging information from back office systems, from your content management systems, and all throughout the organization and out to your external customers. This platform utilizes state-of-the-art technologies such as RPA, analytics, blockchain, single sign-on cloud, mobile technologies. All of these come together with the content management in the digital processing automation system to drive content and customer service to new levels. So what I'd like you, or at Newgen, our platform will integrate in on the lower half of the circle with all of the other legacy systems inside the organization, and utilizing these new technologies, will help deliver solutions out to end customers all throughout the organization. And those customers can be employees, they can be your paying customers, and that can do it through a number of different media, through social media, through web portal, mobile, in person, email, telephone. So please advance. What I'd like you to take away from this particular slide here is that we're 27 years old. We've operated in 66 countries. We've got about 3,000 employees. We have one platform, this content platform, that has integrated digital process automation in the content, spans multiple verticals, and we are growing. We're a worldwide organization. We're growing at approximately 20% compounded annually every year. Next. These are just some of the customers that we have, some of the logos across the Americas, Middle East and Africa, Asia Pacific. We've got organizations that have started off in one country and expanded to worldwide implementations. And these are leading industries or leading companies in each one of their industries. Be more than happy to share some of this with you later should you have any questions. Next. We're recognized by all the industry analysts, and we're a strong performer in the ECM Content Platform Wave Report from 2019, a strong performer in the DPA, Digital Process Automation report, also from 2019, and from 2018, we're a leader in the Cloud-Based Dynamic Case Management Wave Report from Forrester. Next. Some of the things that I'd like you to walk away from this webinar today from both Cheryl and what we're talking about here when you're choosing a platform is, first, you want to make sure that the content management system you acquire supports the capture from and interoperability with many devices, both local and remotely, so that your users can enjoy a consistent and seamless experience regardless of where they are or whether they started a process on one device in their office and switched to another as soon as they got home. Next, as Cheryl mentioned, AI-enabled analytics help you to identify critical insights into business process and even the people you work with. This goes well above simple dashboards and enables better decision-making. Make sure the solutions you're looking at support some level of AI, and the vendor can help you leverage that in your document as well as data processes. Next, the type of electronic content is continually shifting. An effective content management system, or any other business system for that matter, requires that all data be available whenever it's needed. In many cases, that requires immediate capture, classification, indexing, data extraction, and storage of the documents. AI and machine learning play an important role in rapid and accurate capture of that content and records. So if your ECM solution does not have this, it's not lost. What that means is it'll take a little bit longer to intake content. There'll be some extra work in quality control or a higher degree of errors due to manual work being done. All of that can be corrected, but you're not getting the true efficiencies that the technology promises. So AI and machine learning are two of the relatively new capabilities every content management platform should have. Not all of them do. Next, Newgen provides multiple dimensions of extensibility and scalability for the content services platform. First, the systems can scale up to manage extremely large implementations. Our largest supports about 14 billion documents, 100,000 users, including all the mobile users, and an IT architecture that's distributed out over 2,000 servers and federated databases. Nothing in the world, no other system in the world is quite this large and robust, and this gives fantastic response time. Second level of extensibility is with OmniDocs. The flagship content management system can connect to virtually all other content management and BPM systems on the market, adding value and extending their useful life until they're transitioned to a more modern solution like ours. Last, the ability to use content and powerful workflows creates an enterprise opportunity for our customers to get the full benefit and promise of ECM. Last, we create a portfolio of microservices that allow content to be multi-purposed and used in required applications such as records management, audit, transactional processing. And these microservices also aid into integration with dozens of legacy applications. The customers that we're talking to, prospects and customers that we're talking to, tell us they want a solution that you can build once, but use for many different purposes. And that is the definition of extensibility. So, as you consider either implementing a first-time content management solution, and there are some of you out there, or replacing an existing one, many more out there, or augmenting your existing systems, and there are many, many more out there, please contact us here at Newgen. We'd be happy to help you explore your current systems and how the newer technology can help you achieve greater efficiencies while delivering better customer experiences. We have a team of pre-sales technical consultants and salespeople that would be more than happy to come with you on site, have a look at your current implementations, and review your plans and help you define a roadmap. Okay, so please give us a call. We look forward to helping you. And I'll turn it back over to Darshak in case there are any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Absolutely, we have a couple of questions. Let me go through them one by one. Okay, I have got first question for Cheryl.
Okay.
Question is, can you share some experience that Forrester customers might have had when they migrated from their existing legacy platform to modern ECM?
Yeah, migration can be simple or complex. It often is complex, especially if there's a lot of custom integrations or customizations done to the underlying platform. I think one of the really important considerations when you're thinking about migration is, what is the value of the content? Do you want to migrate just the active open content and archive some of the more historical, infrequently used content, or do you need to move everything at once? We're also seeing customers that are interested in doing more understanding about their content, especially if they're migrating from, let's say, something that's a file share based repository, where they're looking to understand, okay, do we have any exposed PII, right? Employee data, financial data, customer data that needs to be protected as we migrate to a more modern system. So I think the key considerations is, really understanding your content. What's the value of it? Is it something that needs to be moved to the new system, or can it just be archived for, records or legal purposes?
Thank you. Next question is for Tim. The question is, why should an organization opt for a modern ECM platform while there are so many popular file storage and file sharing platforms already are there in practice, which does most of the work?
That's a very good question. There are lots of file storage and sharing platforms available in the web, even some on-prem ones. And Cheryl discussed some of the challenges that organizations face when studying this. And something as basic and simple as storage and retrieval is much broader in terms of what the customers are wanting. Customers are demanding really high security, and they're demanding scalability. These are two of the most important considerations. But a third consideration is that it pertains to usability. What are you doing with that content? What are you doing with those documents? If it's a pure records management or storage application and you never have to use those documents, well, then maybe file storing and file sharing is acceptable. But if you think about every single document, a document is indicative of a process. It's either something that triggers a process, is created during the process, created after a process. So if you can identify the processes where those documents are used, you can get a much higher value, and in many cases, a much higher economic return on the organization for automating those processes with those documents. And that's achievable through a true content platform, not achievable through basic storage and file sharing.
Tim, I think there is a follow-up question to that, which is, uh, so the audience is saying that we already have a workflow from one vendor and file storage from another one. Considering that they have already invested in both of them, how can they justify investing in another ECM platform?
That too is another good and very tricky question. I'd love to give you a very specific answer to that. And there are specific answers, but it's a little bit difficult to give you an answer without a little bit more information regarding what your current situation is, what your systems are, what your needs and requirements are. And we can connect immediately after this call, and I'll be happy to schedule an appointment and see how we can help it, or just have an offline discussion with you. But for the rest of you, you might want to consider that the Newgen platform can coexist with existing ECM or BPM platforms that you might have in your organization. And as such, as I mentioned previously, that will extend their useful lives. And we're finding, as Cheryl mentioned, organizations with these hybrid systems, they have an existing system, they want to get a new system taking advantage of the latest and greatest functionality. And our system is integrated with other content management systems in some leading organizations where they're getting the full benefit of all of the advanced technology in a Newgen platform and using the other repositories simply for storage. And we'd be happy to explore these options with you. And it could include efficient replacement of one or both of your existing systems, or it could involve augmenting your systems, or creating a transitional approach so that you can keep what you have right now and over the course of a phased implementation, move those other systems out. Does that help?
Sure, Tim. I'll definitely check on email follow-up. I have a question for Cheryl. How relevant is blockchain for ECM? And if blockchain is making any entry in that space, are there any use cases in practice in the industry?
Yeah, this is another really interesting area of, potential and innovation. I'm not the lead analyst at Forrester on blockchain, but in the world of content management, where I'm seeing some interesting potential is using the blockchain, especially for enterprise to enterprise to enterprise. Those cross-organizational transactions where you need kind of a decentralized ownership of agreeing who's agreeing essentially what's taken place. The documents themselves, however, are typically not expected to be stored in a blockchain. So there is an opportunity for these modern repositories to still be that quote off-chain repository for the documents or records that support the transaction, but the blockchain is the kind of the authenticated ledger of all of the transactions that have happened around it. So that's where we're seeing some really interesting potential. Some of the early use cases I've started to see, shipping and transportation, often related to things like food manufacturing, land titles. I've seen some pilot groups essentially, but so anywhere where there's multiple organizations having to come into agreement around transactions, looking at the blockchain to kind of serve as that ledger, but there's still a need for the documents surrounding it to be protected and maintained.
Thanks, Cheryl. I have got another one for you, and I think it's pretty related. This now is about big data. How important big data processing is for ECM, or is it something wishful but not necessary to have at least for another few years?
Yeah, I mean that could kind of go a couple of different directions. I think my initial comment on that is that for organizations that are investing in big data, analytics initiatives, making technology investments here, I think a lot of organizations still neglect the value of content to be part of that broader analytics stack. It could be the metadata around the documents, but it could be extracting the data from inside the documents themselves. Companies are sitting on years, if not decades, of insights from customers, right? Communication, correspondence, contracts, agreements. And a lot of this doesn't make it into big data initiatives if the focus is on structured data or real time or social media data. So I guess the big point I have there is, don't neglect content and the related metadata from these analytic initiatives. I think there's a lot of missed opportunity. Companies often overlook their content.
All right. This is the last question. I'm not sure if this is for Cheryl or Tim, but maybe you both can answer that, which is the audience is saying that I joined little late. I'm not too sure if you discussed about customer experience and ECM. Does ECM really play a big role in delivering great expectations of customer?
So this is Cheryl. I'll start and then hand it to Tim. So I would say absolutely. Customer experience is often the number one or number two area of investment and priority for organizations, and content is absolutely part of that. We communicate with customers via content, right? Whether it's correspondence or statements, email, etc. That's all content. We use content to drive revenue, whether it's agreements, brochures, demo decks. So there's all kinds of content that support that revenue acquisition process. And when we think about, meeting customers where they want to work, it means tailoring some of the content, to their preferred distribution channel. So if I want to consume content through mobile or through web or video or, standard, textual documents, companies need to think about their content creation and delivery strategy as part of that. So I absolutely think it's a key underpinning for customer experience improvement.
Good. I agree with everything that Cheryl just said. And content is rather like a language in communication. This is how customers can interact with people. They interact with their vendors through words, through emails, through letters. And the content then becomes something that has to be acted upon. And that content can be a complaint, for example. A complaint comes on in. Someone has to get that, analyze that, research it, check background information, and share that with others, take a decision, and then record that decision, creating thus more content. So content in terms of managing customer experience and customer interactions is critical in every industry. Good question. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl and Tim. I wish we had time to answer more questions, but definitely we'll reach out back to everybody whose questions are pending. We appreciate your time and valuable insights, Tim and Cheryl, you have shared. It was definitely a fantastic session to conduct today. We will send across copy of questions and webinar recording to all the registrants. Those who are not able to share their questions today, please feel free to email them to us. Thanks again, and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.